The year was 1963 when daring robbers attacked the Royal Mail train. The 11 men had meticulously planned and executed their plan. Who were these 11 people? Their leader was Bruce Richard Reynolds. He worked together with Roger Corddry, Gordon Cody, Buster Edwards, Charlie Wilson, Jimmy Hassey, Ronnie Biggs, Tommy Wisby, John Witter, Jimmy White, and Brian Field. The incident became popularly known as the Great Train Robbery. How did it take place? The 11-man gang robbed the Royal Mail train, which was traveling from Glasgow to London on the West Coast Main Line. They were wearing helmets and ski masks. It happened around 3 a.m. on 8 August 1963 at Bridegore Railway Bridge near Mentmore in Buckinghamshire, England. £2.6 million was lost in the raid. The robbery was also known as the Cheddington Mail Van robbery. The men went away with banknotes worth £2.6 million. The men had tampered with the line side signals and brought the train to a halt. They then attacked the train with the aid of a man who was said to be inside the Royal Mail system. Another retired train driver was also said to be present during the robbery. They carefully planned the robbery using inside information from an individual who was only known as the Ulster Man. His real identity has never been established. The money that they escaped with was £2.6 million. The bulk of the loot was never recovered. It is important to note that the gang did not use any firearms during the robbery. The train driver was beaten over the head with a metal bar and he suffered serious injuries. After his partial recovery, he returned to work, but he eventually retired in 1967 and died in 1970 from an illness that was unrelated to the incident. After robbing the train, the 11-man gang hid at Leatherslade Farm, but the police later found out their hideout and they collected enough evidence leading to the subsequent arrest and conviction of most of the gang members. However, some escaped and they were in hiding for some time. The ringleaders were sentenced to 30 years in prison each. The robbery became so famous that items used during committing the robbery were eventually auctioned. These included the ignition key of the getaway vehicles, the petrol caps, the money used by the robbers while in hiding, a watch that was worn by Ronnie Biggs during the raid, a $1 note which was taken by the robbers, a length of wire used to alter the railway signals. All these items were sold for a total of £20,000. This clearly demonstrated how famous the audacious robbers had eventually become. Their August 1963 haste had lasted only 30 minutes and they were 2.6 million richer, but most of them never really enjoyed it. While he was on the run, one of the gang members, Ronnie Biggs, lived in Australia and Brazil. He eventually died at the age of 84. In December 2013, he had been jailed for 25 years, escaped in 1965 and fled to Australia and then Brazil. He eventually returned to the UK to serve out his sentence. One of the gang members, the mastermind behind the robbery, Bruce Richard Reynolds, died in February 2013. He had evaded the long arm of the law for 5 years. The robbery inspired many writers and producers to come up with books and movies that depict one of the most daring robberies of all time. Reynolds eventually became a writer and he penned an autobiography, The Autobiography of a Thief, in 1995. He makes it clear that he had come to a realization that after all, he was mortal. At the end of his autobiography, that is to say in the epilogue, he highlights the number of funerals of his colleagues he was attending. It was haunting him. Charlie Wilson, Buster Edwards, all died before him. When referring to Ronnie Biggs, he said, I quote, "When I look at his frail frame, I see my own mortality." End of quotation. Many years after committing that crime, he was coming to grips with reality. All that he and his colleagues did was in vain. At the end of it all, he was just another mortal human being, and that executing such a robbery did not make him any special. At the end of the day, he realized it was all in vain. It was an exercise in futility. Crime does not pay. For this gang, for anyone, it is a life lesson that all of us need to take into consideration. Thank you for watching this episode of Luminous Recaps. See you in the next installment. It's bye for now.